Innovation in digital is quite an interesting space at the moment. It's really quite an exciting place to be. But again, it's one of these areas where there's very different interpretations of what it is. A lot of companies have now got ahead of innovation, and there's now an expectation that they'll just make innovation happen. To me, innovation is almost something that's inbuilt within your culture in the way that you operate from an organisational perspective. That if you kind of step back in the first instance and say, where do you have your best ideas? Most of us don't have our best ideas sat at a board table in a meeting talking about how do we deliver this or how do we deliver that. I think one of the first things that you've got to look at from a digital innovation perspective is, are you creating the right environment? I think the reality is that it's about being in a place where you're prepared to fail. We all learn in life by our failures. And I think there's been a corporate culture that we've grown up through over the last, not few years, but probably the last few decades, where failure isn't perceived as being acceptable. And I think the challenge within digital is that you're probably never going to get it right to start off with. So from an innovation perspective, a lot of it starts by understanding what your customers' needs, wants and problems are. And being in a place where, as an organisation, you've got a really sound understanding of the direction that you want to go in. But from there then being in a place where you create an environment where people have time to think and to co-create, but also to be in a place where you really listen to your customer as part of that process of development of your solutions. I think the companies that are really getting this right really start in a kind of process where they have a kind of core challenge that they're trying to address. They bring customers in and they look at kind of co-creation sessions to understand what the customer's needs, wants and problems and what their viewpoint is in terms of what would be the right kind of solution. They listen to their staff, because your staff, particularly your frontline staff, are so well informed in terms of what customers actually are needing, and they also have a great understanding of where you as a company will be failing to actually service those needs. And if you kind of bring that together, what you do is you kind of almost unleash a really powerful capability within the organisation to innovate. But it's no good just saying we're going to stamp it on a tin and say we're going to do it. You've got to kind of create it, and you've got to be in a place where you invest in that time and effort to really listen and build understanding before you start actually moving out to deliver it. And what I would say is one of the big challenges that I see in a lot of businesses is the fact that they bring in external consultancy firms and they say, you're an expert in this area, you tell us what the problem is. And they don't know your customers as well as you do. And what they'll tend to do is they'll go out and they'll speak to your staff and they'll speak to your customers, and then they'll come back and bring the answer to you. And you could have done that yourself, but if you'd done it yourself and ingrained it as part of the culture, you build something that can grow and to build momentum within your organisation and deliver the transformation that you seek, rather than being in the place where when you do it in other ways it tends to be a kind of one-time thing. And I think to deliver to customers' expectations going forward, you're going to have to constantly evolve. What my expectations as a consumer were today will be different in 2 years' time, because I'm going to have different experiences with different brands who are going to make things easier and easier for me. There's other people that are going to come in with new technologies and make my life different or easier to operate in different ways. And that's going to change my expectation to a much higher level. So as an organisation, you've got to accept that digital transformation and digital innovation is a never-ending cycle, because it's always going to be driven by what your customers' expectations are.